Robert, thank you so much for joining us today. We do appreciate it.
Glad to be with you.
Absolutely. Well, let's start real general. So when you heard the news that former President Trump was going to be indicted, what went through your mind? What were you thinking?
Well, just the basics. How do you handle somebody who has Secret Service detail and in the arraignment, for the arrest, arraignment, and the normal day-to-day activities that happens when someone is arrested on a felony charge? Everybody in the world who gets arrested goes through the same process. Donald Trump will go through the same process, but he'll do it with Secret Service protection.
Right, so a little bit different, though he'll be treated somewhat similar, but being such a high-profile figure, that brings into to question some maybe special provisions. What do you think will have to happen when he is actually, brought in? What would that look like?
Well, I don't think he'll actually be brought in. I think he'll be invited to come in, and they'll get a date and time when he will surrender himself. He'll surrender himself at the specific location, which will be where he'll be arraigned. And they'll go through the normal process. He'll be fingerprinted, mugshotted, and then ultimately taken into a courtroom to meet with the judge for arraignment. His counsel and the prosecuting attorneys will probably have a conference to talk about some of the things that are going to happen in the arraignment. One of the things that's going to happen in the arraignment is the judge will have to decide what to do with the now indicted, arrested Donald Trump. So the options are incarcerate him until trial, unlikely. The options are to release him and put an ankle bracelet on him to track his movements, unlikely. Release him with a level of bail, less likely. Or to release him on his own recognizance because he has sufficient ties to the community and the nation that he will not flee, obviously not taking his passport in those scenarios. So they'll do all of that. He'll enter a plea, guilty, not guilty, and that'll all be recorded. While that is happening, if we don't know now, we will definitely know then what the exact counts of the indictment. I've heard speculation today, and I have no way to verify whether it's true or not, that the indictment had 34 counts. If the indictment did in fact have 34 counts, that means this goes well past just the initial Stormy Daniels pieces. There's other things in there that we're clearly not aware of at this point. What we will be when the indictment is opened and read. It's under seal now until this arraignment process happens. Possibly it could be given to Donald Trump's counsel before the arraignment, which also speculatively is going to happen on Tuesday, so that they're ready to respond in court to what the prosecutors have to say and what the judge needs to ask in that process.
What do you think somebody like former President Donald Trump, obviously a very high-profile figure, he's being charged here. Do you think this sends the message to Americans that really nobody is above the law? I mean, looking like somebody like Donald Trump could be indicted. What do you think?
I hope it does. I hope that is exactly the message that is received, and not the one that I heard on a lot of, I'll say, conservative, right-leaning talk hosts, that this was a political vendetta against Donald Trump that ultimately ends in this indictment. I hope that's not the case. I don't think that's the case. I think, as you just said, no one's above the law, and a jury of his peers, our peers, American citizens who live in New York, listened to evidence presented by the prosecutors, had an opportunity to listen to any evidence that Donald Trump's lawyers wanted to present in opposition to that. And at the end of that process, these people came to the conclusion that there was probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed, or crimes, if there are in fact 34 counts. Each count would be a part of a crime, and that Donald Trump or others, because there could be other people indicted as well, but we just don't know about that yet, that Donald Trump was the person who committed the offenses listed in the indictment. That's a process that any American or any individual who's brought to the court system in the United States could go through, and they could end up just like Donald Trump has ended up with an indictment, or it could be thrown out if the government fails to prove that probable cause of an offense has been committed.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think something like this occurring does to the political landscape in the future? This has never happened before. We haven't had former president criminally charged before. Do you think we're going to see more of this going forward? Is this going to turn, every election season into a zoo? Or what do you think? Where's your mind go with that question?
Yeah, I know the derogatory term of banana republic. Some people have thrown that out, and where you chase your adversaries down and throw them in jail. But we heard during the Donald Trump's run for presidency, we heard the phrase "lock her up," referring to Hillary Clinton. So this is not a new thought process in America. It's a new thought process since Donald Trump came on the scene, where people are thinking about, well, do I lock up my opponents? Do I take them out of play by making them criminals or alleging criminality? I don't think that's a norm going forward in American society, unless Donald Trump doesn't get convicted and Donald Trump becomes the president of the United States again. I think leaning in that box, we could go that way. I don't think there's anybody else on the landscape right now that is going to follow suit. Maybe Mike Pompeo would be a guy who would follow in that road as well. But I don't think the majority of Democrats, Republicans, or independents are thinking that way. And I know they don't. American citizens don't want that. That is opposite of what do we want as an American, from my own perspective here, as American citizens. I want a robust debate of the issues of the day. I want compromise to happen so that individuals on the far ends of both spectrums are probably unhappy what happened, but folks in the middle are saying that's the way we need to go, because that is the thing that gets us to the end state that we need. What we don't need as an end state, as a regular component of our political process, is vendetta seeking from politicians using the court system as the process.
And what do you think about the case itself? Of course, we're waiting for more information about the indictment to come down, but do you think there's a strong case here? Where does your mind go with that one?
It goes back to whether people are going to believe Michael Cohen, because Michael Cohen is the linchpin to this. They talked about the fact that he went in to talk with the DA 17 times, and he's appeared before the grand jury on multiple occasions. And apparently they believed what he had to say, or we would not have this indictment. Other pieces are this. So Trump's money man from the Trump organization is now sitting in Rikers. He used to have a very high profile attorney. He now apparently has switched to someone who used to be a U.S. federal prosecutor. Is he still in the Trump orbit, or is he removed from the Trump orbit and now cooperating with the New York authorities and is a part of this case? It's all speculation, have no idea, but those type of things could have a great impact on the end state here. If he's cooperating and giving information that was previously unknown that relates to these crimes, that goes heavily toward the government being able to prove what it thinks it has the indictment for, and beyond Stormy Daniels' payoffs.
It's going to be very interesting to see where all of this goes. Certainly unprecedented territory that we are in at this particular point. But Robert, I really appreciate your insight and your knowledge here today. But before I turn you loose, is there anything you want to add that I didn't ask you about?
Well, I want to make sure, at least I want to hope that There are Americans out there who may be in the Trump orbit who are upset, but they look back at January 6th and say that that's not the United States. That's not what we do. That's not how we do it. We're not looking for a second revolution inside the United States of America. That's not what we do. We change our government peacefully through the vote. We can never say that we can do that again because January 6th happened. So that's off the table. We can't do that again. We can never say that a president or former president was indicted. That's off the table. Let's not put new things on the table involving political violence in America. Political violence in America is on the rise and it's dangerous. And if we don't recognize and find ways to get past and around that, the problem we have right now are minuscule.
Absolutely. Well, Robert Sanders, Associate Professor at the University of New Haven, joining us with a lot of great knowledge and a lot of insight today. Sir, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us, and you take care.
Glad you take care.